Hello everybody, welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to be continuing bodywork on my 2004 GMC Sierra known as Phantasm. If you are new here and don't know what this thing is, go check out the playlist from when I bought it over a year ago and you'll see the progress up to the most current point, which is my last video. And speaking of the last episode, if you guys remember right after I got done applying epoxy primer to all the bare metal spots in the truck, I noticed a couple spots that were a bit questionable, and you can see one of them over there. So let's go talk about them. So starting on the driver's side, you guys remember there was marks right in here that kind of bled through from the epoxy, and it was also down through here too. Then the same spot on the passenger side, there were some marks right here. So one big problem I ran into when I was starting to sand the cab corners and doors, the epoxy primer was extremely clumpy. Now keep in mind, I sanded the inner rockers and I also sanded the door jambs, and they sanded absolutely fine. It was only the doors and the cab corners. And the last spot right down here where you can see the filler line, this has obviously been fixed. I put more filler in and also put some more glaze in. It feels nice and smooth, so we'll see how that turns out. So the only logical explanation to what happened was, when I sprayed the metal etch on the body and doors, I did get it on the original paint, which didn't exactly matter because it's getting repainted anyway, but that did eat away at the paint a little bit, but it didn't peel. But whenever I sprayed the epoxy on, that's what did it. So on the cab, any area I re-exposed, I'm going to re-etch carefully this time, and I have one more can of that primer left over. So I'm going to make this one count, and hopefully the cab corners turn out smooth. So I'm just going to try to blend in the epoxy primer and pretty much hope for the best. Now this goal may sound like a long shot, but it seems pretty reasonable for me. I want to try to have all the panels cut in and the truck partially assembled and ready to have the exterior primed and painted. So the first two hurdles, what's hanging above me? The bumpers. Now I started whacking away at this one, gonna get stripped and sanded. It kind of sucks and it's very redundant, so I didn't really show what I did, and it's pretty understandable. Use paint stripper, get the coating off, go over it with sandpaper, and those will be ready for primer. Another hurdle is this right rear door. The only thing I really did to it on camera was fix that dent right down there. But I stripped the door back and I found another dent. You can see I had to redo the filler work on that, so that should be fine. And there was another spot. The guy knew about this when I bought him. He told me there was a dent right here. That has since been smooth. It should be fine. But this door also needs coated in epoxy primer. And the last three hurdles are the fenders and the hood. I got some more filler work to do right on the passenger side fender. I also got some rust I gotta take care of. Good example is on the driver's side. You can see it's blistering all through here. It's definitely not the worst. It is 100% fixable. Same with right within this hood latch. It's starting to rust up. You can see it's right in there a little bit. That's still fixable to me. So I never shown this list before, but this is the list I made for the truck. Everything from that dotted line is everything I did. Plus you can see some stuff I moved to the final assembly section. But the only thing on this list that needs done is right up there. So whenever this is crossed off, then we can worry about down here, and this we'll worry about when we cross that bridge. So I'm going to get the bumpers and that right rear door taken care of off camera because, like I said, that's self-explanatory. And then we'll pick right back up on the cab corners. So this was my first time using a spray gun to put any type of paint down. Luckily, this is epoxy primer. This is just a seal coat for the metal. Kind of went too heavy up in here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but that's going to be sanded anyway, so it's no big deal. But my little dents, like right here and then right in here, kind of look good enough. This one was actually fine. This one's gonna be good enough. It still lines up, and also keep in mind there's no strikers on the rear door, so it's kind of tucked in a little bit. So once it's lined up, it's gonna look a lot better. So most of that stuff can be taken care of, but what I want to focus on now is getting all the panels sanded down, like the insides of the fenders and the hood and the left rear door. That way I can get them cut in and put them back on the truck. Alrighty, so 1 week has gone by, the epoxy is finally cured, and in that week I got some things accomplished, like getting the bumpers an epoxy primer. And both of the inner fenders have undercoating on them, and the only thing I actually found to get it off is this stuff here. I don't know what it is about this stuff. It will not take automotive paint off, but it will take undercoating off, so I guess that's a win, but it's a pretty messy win. I did fix the stud on the fender. What I did was I cut the rest of the old stud off and drilled a hole right in the center of that little like plug where it got welded to the fender. Then I found a bolt with a shoulder on it and I cut the head off, cleaned it up, and I welded it in, and honestly, it's pretty strong. So at this point, there really isn't too much to see. I just got to scuff up a couple panels. I also have to sandblast a couple panels as well. And after that, I can get everything cut in and reassembled. So I'm going to continue work on sanding the door jambs and sanding some other panels. And I'm going to get prep for sandblasting, and I'm going to get that taken care of. So I'm going to break away. I'm going to come back whenever all that's done. Well, it's probably been over a month since I filmed anything on this truck. And that is because I've been going out of state for job training. So any progress on this truck is slow, but it has not stopped. So I was able to sandblast the hood and fenders. I also did treat them inside and out. I got some internal coating on the inside that helped prevent rust. And I also have that acid etch prep where rust used to be. You can see I did discolor the paint some, but this is getting repainted anyway, so this is going to be totally fine. I also did decide it was probably a good idea to paint the roof too, and I'm very glad I did. I actually found stone chips that were starting to rust, so I was able to sand all that away, treat the metal, and it should be fine. There are dents in the roof. I did try to heat them up so they could pop out, but it wasn't working. And if I didn't have the headliner back in, I probably would take care of them, but not too worried about it. Just gonna scuff and spray the roof. You're not really gonna see it unless you're like 6'6". So, to nobody's surprise, I had more problems with the cab corners. I think in the last episode I showed like little imperfections inside the paint which kind of reappeared. And I did take care of them, and I kind of sprayed some more epoxy paint on it. And it never cured because I went to sand everything and the sandpaper stuck to the paint. I still kind of don't know what happened to that epoxy primer. Maybe the hardener wasn't that good, even though the cans were maybe 2 months old. Maybe. But when that stuff was touched by paint stripper, it liquefied immediately. So that's why both the cab corners are stripped down to bare metal. I had to redo my filler work because the stripper did affect it some, but that's no big deal. It's actually better this time than it was the previous time, so at least I did something right. And I'm going to be using the Speedo Coat epoxy primer on the cab corners because that actually turned out fine. And I also found out too, when you sand it, it's actually pretty forgiving and it sands pretty smooth. So at least that's a win. So on the cab side of things, when I go to cut in the door jambs, I'm also going to spray the roof at the same time because that's going to be easier. The doors are on the truck so I can get in pretty close. And I also let the air out of the tires, that way I can get up to the roof and spray it. And of course, I'm also going to get the hood and the fenders cut in too. The left rear door needs cut in because it was a different color. I also need to apply seam sealer to that door because nobody seemed to put it on when it was at the body shop down south, so I got to do that. I also got to put seam sealer on the tops of the cab corners because I noticed it's getting dry and it's starting to crack, and I don't want rust or water leaks on this thing, so I'm going to take care of that too. So yeah, the slow progress kind of sucks, but I actually prefer it. Instead of trying to rush to get everything done at once, I can actually take small steps here and there to get something big accomplished. And with that said, next time I film something on this truck, it'll be cut in and ready to be put back together. So it's been a couple weeks since I filmed anything on this truck, and I kind of got a little too far ahead of myself, but the roof and door jambs have been painted. Let's go take a look to see how they turned out. So it wasn't obvious, the doors are back on and they've been adjusted. I also did put a new door latch in the driver door. It opens and shuts so nice now. But we open up the door, look inside. You can see the jams came up pretty good. Don't worry about some of that stuff down there. That's actually from wet sanding the roof. You can see there's a left rear door, how it looks. Again, this door opens and shuts nicely. Everything has also been masked off too for painting the truck. Help the doors stay open. But everything looks great. Now I did get everything back together under hood. The only thing I changed is I put a high output alternator on, solely because of the electric fans down here and a couple other circuits I added to the truck. It kind of needs this alternator now. It does work and it actually keeps up fairly well with everything that the truck has. But the battery and the air filter are out, solely because I don't want to get overspray on any of these parts. In fact, after I'm done, I might add another layer of tape through here just to further protect the hood. But the hood came out great, honestly. The insulation's back on. The color match is actually really good. It'll be a little hard to see, but up against the factory paint on the firewall and the paint I just added on the Defender, I'd say it's a pretty good match. Gaps on the hood are the same as before. I think I did point out that I referenced a good GMC that's never been taken apart. These gaps kind of vary on the hood. Right down here, it gets better, but I have played around with this time and time again, and this is as good as it got. So I'm just going to leave it. So as you can see, the whole entire truck is masked off, meaning that I am now focusing on the exterior body panels. So I am going to start with the hood because it is the only panel that has bare metal. If I can get it real close, you can see all these little black spots right here. These were stone chips. Also up here, there is a big stone chip. Some stone chips up in here. That is the reason why I sanded the hood as far back as I did, because the majority of the stone chips are right up front, and this is going to be a great time to treat the metal. There is also some flash rusting from touching it with your hands. If you guys didn't know, the oils that are in your skin will actually cause metal to rust, but there is a way to treat all of this at once and to hopefully never have it come back. So to get things started on the hood, I'm going to be using the Eastwood Fast Edge Metal Prep. This is not a paid promotion, I pay for this out of pocket, but I've used this stuff before and it does work wonders. You could either spray or brush the acid on, but what it will do, all these rust spots will get turned to iron oxide and it'll never rust again. Plus it'll also put a zinc coating on the bare metal to help it prevent rust. If you don't believe this stuff works, this is the brush I've been using to apply it. You can see what kind of damage it did. You leave it on for 30 minutes and then you wipe it off and then you can move on to your epoxy primer. This is the stuff I used before. Speedo Coat Epoxy Primer Sealer. This stuff does seem to work really well, plus it is actually pretty forgiving to sand. So when it came down to epoxy primers, the Speedo Coat Epoxy Primer does seem to work the best. This was the Ninja brand epoxy primer that came out of a can, and I really don't like the white primer. It does not sand that well, but the Speedo Coat does, and if you do get wrinkles in the paint like I did, up here was all wrinkles, you can sand them out and they will become really smooth. So that's why I say the primer is very forgiving. To also help blend the layers of paint, I did go up so far, I think it was about here with 320 grit sandpaper, because I'm going to take the epoxy primer from the edge all the way up to about here and I can feather it out. That way it looks nice and smooth. As you can see, this is not cottage cheese, this is the acid. I'm using a container I don't care about because once this is used up and I rinse the container out, it's just going straight in the garbage. All I need to do is just brush it on. You can see almost immediately it is having a reaction with the, what would it be, the bad parts, or whatever is bad in the layer of steel. Definitely feel like Bob Ross right now. Instead of painting clouds, I am spreading acid on a body panel. Alright, the half hour has passed. And then I gotta get all this stuff cleaned off. So what I have been using the past few times I've been spraying this truck, I've been using the lint-free towels to try to negate some dust from sticking or landing on the panel. But no matter what, if you're spraying in a garage like me, you're gonna have dust intrusion. Now it doesn't really matter for primer coats because you're gonna sand them, but when it comes to base and especially the clear coat, that's when you gotta worry about dust intrusion. But for right now, I'm not too worried about dust. The primer is just gonna get sanded. There is a window of time you can apply coats of primer, but since I am going to be sanding all of this, I'm going to be leaving a pretty wide window open. That way I can get everything sanded properly. So the past few episodes I didn't really show this process just because how tedious it is. I figured this time I'll show it. This is what I was doing for all the other sides of these panels, door jambs, and roof. Not fun. As you can see right there and also right there, that was once rust. It has turned black. That is the iron oxide. See with that little chip right there, it's been prepped. And these other ones here are prepped as well. So while waiting for everything to air dry over here, I'm gonna go along with an orbital sander with 320 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to sand every side of the truck. It's just to speed the process up. You can do it by hand, but it'll take longer, but the orbital makes it so much quicker. So the primer came out good. Did have some issues with the spray gun. It didn't really want to apply that well, but I have to admit, just for a seal coat, it looks pretty good. I also did decide to get the bumpers in regular primer too. Again, went down nice and smooth, no problems. I think on this bumper here, I only got one run, so that really wasn't too bad. And why did I just see my camera flicker? That's weird. Yeah, here's that run right here, but they're going to be sanded anyway before the base coat goes on, so it's no big deal, but otherwise, went down fine. But yeah, majority of the sanding is done. I just got to do the bottoms of the doors and the rockers. Once the epoxy is cured on the hood and fender, then I can scuff those down too, and then get a coat of regular primer to go over top to seal everything else in and to give a nice uniform finish for the base coat to go down. After the epoxy primer was cured for 24 hours, I hit it with a sander with 320 grit sandpaper. Turned out great, was nice and smooth. Then after that was done, I cleaned everything off and got the truck in primer. So 3 coats of urethane primer went on. It gives the body a nice uniform finish for base coat to go down. Everything was going really well until I started spraying the hood and the paint started breaking loose from the plastic. As you can see, that didn't really work too well in my favor because it got on the hood. This is going to be wet sanded anyway, so the spots are going to disappear. But one thing I am going to do when it comes to the base and clear coat, I'm just going to shove papers all the way around the cowl. That way I don't have this issue again. So I'm going to leave the primer dry. 3 coats is a lot, but when I go to wet sand, I'm probably taking at least 1 coat off and make it nice and smooth. And plus, it gives me a good buffer. That way I don't burn through it because that wouldn't be good. I still have some primer left over, believe it or not. I bought a gallon of primer and I have less than a quarter gallon left. Many of you were curious. 1 gallon of Speedo Coat primer mixed 4-to-1 will paint the front half of a GM truck. Since there's a lot to wet sand here, I'm just going to skip over it because you kind of get the gist of it. Spray soapy water on, sand it, wipe it off, check it, redo it I have to, and then move on. That's the gist of it. It gets very boring and tedious, so I will catch up with you after that's done. So one thing I noticed when I was wet sanding the primer, a lot of it was pretty rough, and I can't exactly control that part of it, but it does make wet sanding a lot harder. So I kind of came up with a quick shortcut. So I found a pretty dull piece of 320 that I cut from my block, and what I did was very carefully go over left to right, up and down, sideways, and swirl. Try to get rid of like little marks like this. That way when I go to wet sand, it makes it nice and smooth. And after I used that dull piece of 320, I went over with 400 grit and soapy water, made sure to get all the 320 lines out and try to get any more little imperfections out. Then after that, I used 600 grit in most areas. I got it nice and smooth. And some areas that were a little rough, I went over with 1000, and the results came out good. And see for yourself, you can actually see the shop lights in the primer. Now these little sand marks are actually going to disappear when the base coat goes down, so that's no big deal. In some bigger areas where I exposed some layers of paint, what I did, I used filler primer. I just coated everywhere where there was exposed and some pretty deep scratches I couldn't get out. I'm going to go over these with 1000 grit, try to get them as smooth as possible. If they need a second coat, they're going to need a second coating, but for the most part, you can't really see any of the lines that I have in here to begin with. There was also a big faint scratch right along through here, and I can't barely make it out, so that is a very good thing. But if it does need redone again, no big deal. A little more fill primer, a little more wet sanding, should be absolutely fine. Well, I definitely got my work cut out. I gotta do this whole left-hand side. I also gotta do the back of the cab too, so I'll come back whenever that's done. So I wouldn't say I didn't get too carried away, but I finished the wet sanding and I started putting the base coat down. There is 4 coats of base coat on the body and the bumpers, and then I also decided to put the metal flake down. The metal flake is a little hard to catch on camera without a clear, but once the clear coat goes on, I will definitely show you. But it's amazing because I've never seen this truck in silver. This truck was sprayed with rubberized undercoating when I bought it. And if I put 2 and 2 together afterwards because I went to go look at it and it was black. And then the next day I went and it was gray. So, yeah. I will take silver over spray on undercoating, which, again, never put that on your vehicle. So here's what the metal flake looks like without the clear coat on. On camera versus with your eyes, it looks totally different. The color on camera looks like it's faded, but in real life, the metal flake is very, very vibrant. So I'm going to leave all of this dry because tomorrow morning for me, the clear coat is going to be going on. And I'm hoping for the best because I've actually had problems with the roof. I've had solvent pop, I've had runs, I've had bugs, I've had dirt. The roof is going to need some special attention later on down the road, but for right now, I am focusing on getting the body done. But I'll cross that bridge when I get there. Can anybody take a wild guess what happened? Because I can tell you what happened. So not only was there 2 coats of clear on this truck because I ran out, it went down bad. As soon as it touched the body panels, it just dried instantly. It didn't have time to smooth out or flow out or nothing. The hood actually came out a little better than the rest of the body, but it looks bad. Like this bad. It looks okay in camera, because you can kind of see my hand reflecting off the back, but you can see how dull the back of the cab is. And if you look down the side of the truck, you kind of see it shines up a lot more than that. So I wet sanded everything in 1000 grit because I wanted to get everything smooth and I could actually take my time with it and not burn through whatever clear coat is left. So $260 later, I got this Euro clear stuff. This is the reducer and this is the material. This mixes 2 to 1. And I hope this goes well because I don't really want to wet sand this again. Well, the truck is finally in a clear. That Euro clear made this truck look phenomenal. And I had this painted yesterday, at least in my time frame. It's been well over 24 hours. The clear coat is definitely hardened. It's not fully cured yet. I would like to get this thing out in the sun, let it bake for a couple of days. That should actually help the clear coat a lot. And then I can really get this truck back together. Because at this point, it is ready to go back together. Here is basically everything I'm gonna need to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And there's a lot of parts here. It's definitely been a very long battle to get to this point. I started this back in March, and it's the end of September. And I'm glad I got it done now, or else this truck would be sitting all winter just to get it sprayed. But I'm really happy it worked out the way it did. There are imperfections in the paint. It's definitely not perfect. There's some dirt, there's some runs, but that'll get taken care of probably within a few months because I am going to get this thing cut and buffed, and it should look a million times better. With that said, I'm going to leave this episode off here. Phantasm is finally painted. It looks fantastic, and with a cut and buff, it's going to look so much better. In the next video, the truck should be back together, and that will be the end of the build series. But it's definitely not going to be the end of this truck, because there's still a lot of things I like to do with it. If you followed along this far, I really appreciate it. If you're here from start to end, if you're just starting up at this point, then you're missing out on the big picture. You don't know what this truck looked like, and honestly, seeing what it looked like before to now, it's mind-blowing. And I'm happy. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to leave a like. If you have any questions about this whole build series, ask down in the comments below. And if you like what you see and you want to show your support, you might as well subscribe because I am now in the home stretch. And if you want to get notified when this new video goes up, when the truck is up and running, hit that bell down below. I have a long way to go before this truck is running again. And you'll see that in the next episode. I'll catch you guys later.